Mark had never thought of himself as brave. He was quiet, careful, and liked routines. Every morning he woke up at the same time, drank the same coffee, and took the same bus to work. His job was simple. He worked in a small office, answered emails, and fixed small problems. Nothing exciting ever happened there. But that morning felt different. When Mark sat down at his desk, his phone buzzed. There was a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Mark. I know this might sound strange, but please read this." Mark frowned. He didn't usually open messages like that, but something made him curious. He opened it. "You don't know me, but I know you helped my sister last year. She was having the worst day of her life. You didn't know it, but your kindness saved her." Mark stared at the screen. He tried to remember. A sister? A bad day? Then it came back to him. 1 year earlier, Mark had been waiting for the bus after work. It was raining, and everyone looked tired and annoyed. A young woman stood near him, crying quietly. People walked past her, pretending not to notice. Mark almost did the same, but something stopped him. He asked softly, "Are you okay?" She shook her head. "No," she said, "but it's not your problem." Still, Mark stayed. They talked for a few minutes. She had lost her job that day. She felt alone and scared. Mark didn't have a solution. He didn't give advice. He just listened. When her bus arrived, she smiled for the first time. "Thank you," she said. "I needed that." Mark had forgotten about it soon after. Back in the office, Mark reread the message. "My sister is doing well now," it continued. "She talks about that day often. She says a stranger reminded her that people can be kind." Mark felt something warm in his chest. A few seconds later, another message arrived. "I just wanted you to know, what you did mattered." Mark leaned back in his chair. All this time, he had believed his life was small, quiet, unimportant. But maybe he was wrong. That evening, Mark walked home instead of taking the bus. He noticed things he usually ignored: the sound of the city, the lights in the windows, people laughing. The next day, he smiled more. He asked his coworkers how they were doing. He listened. Days passed, weeks passed. Mark didn't become famous. His life didn't change overnight. But he changed. He started helping without expecting anything back, holding doors, listening, being present. One afternoon, he saw someone crying at the bus stop. He didn't hesitate. "Are you okay?" he asked. And once again, a simple question made a difference. You never know how much your words or actions can mean to someone else. Kindness is never small. After that day at the bus stop, something inside Mark slowly shifted. He didn't wake up as a new person the next morning. He still drank the same coffee and took the same route to work. But he started noticing people more. At the office, he realized how quiet everyone was. They worked side by side, but rarely talked. One morning, Mark decided to change that. "How was your weekend?" he asked Anna from the next desk. She looked surprised. Then she smiled. "It was nice. Thanks for asking." It was a small moment, but it felt important. A few days later, Mark received another message. It was from the same unknown number. "My sister wanted to say thank you herself. She's nervous, but she asked if she could write to you." Mark hesitated. He wasn't sure what to say. But then he replied, "Of course." A minute later, a new message appeared. "Hi, Mark. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you very clearly." She told him about that rainy day again, how close she had been to giving up, how talking to a stranger made her feel seen. "You didn't fix my problems," she wrote, "but you helped me believe I could fix them myself." Mark read the message slowly, then once again.
He had never thought of listening as something powerful. That evening, Mark sat by his window at home. The city lights reflected on the glass. He thought about how many times he had stayed silent, how many moments he had avoided because he didn't want to bother anyone. What if I had walked away that day? He wondered. The thought made him uncomfortable. Over the next weeks, Mark made small changes. He called his parents more often. He checked on friends he hadn't spoken to in years. Some conversations were short, some were awkward, but some were meaningful. One evening, his old friend Daniel replied to his message. "I'm glad you wrote," Daniel said. "I've been having a hard time lately." They met for coffee. They talked for hours. Mark realized something important that day. Helping others didn't always mean doing something big. Sometimes it meant simply showing up. One afternoon at work, a new employee joined the team. Her name was Lucy. She looked nervous and unsure. Mark recognized the feeling immediately. During lunch, he sat next to her. "First week?" he asked. She nodded. "It's overwhelming." Mark smiled a little. "I know the feeling. It gets easier." Lucy relaxed a little. Later that day, she thanked him. "That helped more than you think." Mark smiled to himself. Months passed. Life was still busy, still imperfect, but Mark felt different, more present, more connected. One rainy evening, he stood at the same bus stop as before. A man stood nearby, staring at the ground. His shoulders were tense. Mark hesitated. Then he spoke. "Long day?" The man looked up and nodded. "Yeah." They talked while waiting for the bus, just a few minutes. But when the bus arrived, the man smiled. "Thanks," he said. "I needed that." Mark watched him get on. He didn't wait for a message this time. He didn't expect one. He already knew. You don't need to be brave. You don't need the right words. Sometimes, all it takes is listening. And sometimes, that changes everything. The weeks after that evening felt calmer for Mark. Not quieter, calmer. He still had busy days and moments of stress, but they didn't stay with him as long. He had learned something important. Feelings pass faster when they are shared. One Saturday morning, Mark decided to do something new. He volunteered at a small community center near his home. It wasn't anything special. They helped people fill out forms, answered questions, and sometimes just talked. At first, Mark felt unsure. What if I say the wrong thing, he thought. But then he remembered. You don't need perfect words. One afternoon, an elderly man sat across from him. He looked tired and confused. "I don't really need help," the elderly man said quietly. "I just didn't want to be alone today." Mark nodded. "That's okay. We can just talk." They talked about the city, about how much it had changed. When the man left, he shook Mark's hand. "Thank you for listening," he said. Mark felt that familiar warmth again. Later that evening, Mark received one more message. It was from the sister again. "I hope you don't mind me writing. I just wanted to tell you I started a new job today." Mark smiled. "That's great news," he replied. She sent one last message. "I try to be like you now. I talk to people. I listen." Mark put his phone down and stared at the ceiling. He realized something then. Kindness doesn't end. It moves. Months later, Mark found himself standing in front of a mirror before work. He looked the same. Same face, same clothes, but inside, he felt stronger. Not louder, not braver, just more open. As he left his apartment, he held the door for someone behind him. She smiled and said thank you. Outside, the city was waking up. Buses, voices, footsteps. Mark took a deep breath. Somewhere, someone might be having the worst day of their life. And maybe, just maybe, a simple question could help. You don't have to change the world. You just have to notice it. Because sometimes, listening is enough.